Oh, there you are. I thought you'd all but forgotten me. How sweet. Good to know that a skinny little heretic can still turn heads.
Hey there, my name is Alex. I am the Silvermont, and in this video we're going to be talking Dark Souls lore. In particular, the character Karla from Dark Souls 3. This is a video I've been wanting to make ever since I found her in Irithyll, so I'm glad I finally got the chance. She isn't an overly important character, but she is, to me, one of the most interesting. Just who is she? What connections might she have with the Daughters of Manus? Not to mention Alva and Zully. Hopefully by the end of this video, we'll have stirred up some good discussion. So, let's get started. And as usual, we'll start with the name. Whilst it is a real name, I had some difficulty in searching down the exact meaning of Karla. On a basic level, we can say that it's a European name and a feminine variation of the name Karl with a C or a K, itself related to the name Charles and meaning man, although there is a theory stating it comes from a word meaning army or warrior. Nothing particular of note there, unless we buy into the theory that Karla has some relation to Manus. No, the more interesting thing about Karla's name is its relation to a certain selection of characters from Dark Souls 2, Nishandra, Quelana, Nadalia and Alsana. Karla fits rather well with them, doesn't it? But then hardly enough to place her as Daughter of Manus, until you consider this line.
But I'm guilty. A wretched child of the Abyss.
This would heavily suggest that Karla is in some way related to the Daughters of Manus. We know that following his defeat at the hands of the Chosen Undead, Manus effectively lived on, fragments of his being spreading throughout the world, as Vendrick states.
The Abyss once had form, but then dissipated, and yet traces of its existence endured. Each fragment, thirsting for power, spread dark with no relent. My dear Chandra was one such fragment. A feeble, tiny thing that thirsted for power more than any other.
Nishandra represented the want of Manus, Quelana represented the wrath of Manus, Nadalia represented the solitude of Manus, and Alsana herself tells us that she represents his fear. If Karla truly is another of these beings, what could she represent? We'll get back to that. First up, let's look at her character a little more, to see if we can't get some clues. We first find Karla locked up in Irithyll jail. She states it is a land of monstrosities, that she is no exception. And what do we know about the jail? Sullivan employed the survivors of the profaned capital to ward the jail, but we don't rightly know who he was locking up there, or why. The twisted enemies found in the jail are referred to as failed prisoners, and drop weapons crafted from feeble tailbones and thought to represent dragons. The way to Archdragon Peak is also in the jail, along with the Lightning Spear Miracle and plenty of sorcerer equipment. Was Sullivan locking up those who failed to reach the peak, or was he attempting to stop anyone from reaching the peak in the first place? Well, it's very hard to say, although there's certainly something going on with dragons there. It probably doesn't involve Karla. No, I think perhaps a better comparison to draw would be with Yuria of Demon's Souls. Yuria and Karla share the same voice actor, and much else besides. Both are heretical sorcerers, found locked up. They have a similar countenance to boot. It's worth pointing out that Karla also references, by name, Quelana from the first Dark Souls, a character likewise voiced by the same actor and a near-matching personality. Rescuing Karla is beneficial to the Ashen One. They can not only learn several unique spells from Karla, but she will also read you many tomes, including divine tomes, although she has a large aversion to them and only does so upon much insistence on the Ashen One's part. What about her connection with Alva and Zully? Well, Alva's equipment is found just outside her cell. Alva, of course, is Seeker of the Spurned. And let's have a look at Karla's ashes. The spurned child of the Abyss never dies, but phases in and out of its fringes, only there is no one to search for her any longer. Karla and Zully certainly both are dark witches of a heretical nature, but are they one and the same? Are they sisters? Is one mother to the other? In the ringed city we find Alva once again. This time his revenant invades close to the spot where we might find Zully's garb, which makes no mention of Karla. The way I see it, there are several possibilities here. First up, no connection, but that's boring. Second of all, Karla is Zully's mother, or vice versa, Zully is Karla's mother. Let's have a look at the magic we can obtain directly from Karla to see if there's anything we can glean. First up, affinity. This dark sorcery is effectively Pursuers from the first game, and in both games it has a strong connection with envy or perhaps love. A forbidden dark sorcery casts a dark manifestation of humanity. It appears to be an expression of envy or perhaps love towards another that will tenaciously pursue its target, even if, like so many human desires, it amounts to nothing but misfortune. Sorcery of Manus, Father of the Abyss. Grant a fleeting will to the dark of humanity, and volley the result. The will fuels envy, or perhaps love, and despite the inevitably trite and tragic ending, the will sees no alternative, and is driven madly towards its target. That could well answer some of our questions, but there's another sorcery to consider, Dark Edge. A forbidden dark sorcery, strikes with blade formed of humanity's darkness. Passed from mother to daughter, this blade was intended for both protection and as a means of taking one's own life. The young girl never swung it, more than once. This was a sorcery passed from mother to daughter, and it is in Karla's possession. If it serves both to protect and also to kill oneself, that would imply, to me, that it was used for the latter purpose. Or perhaps there is some clever language going on here, and taking one's own life was intended to be the ultimate protection. After all, there's a lot of things in the Dark Souls world that one might need protection from. But then, if you consider Karla's ashes again, it states, the spurned child of the Abyss never dies. So what do we make of that? Is the girl referring to Karla or Zully? The spell bears some resemblance to the Dark Greatsword Hex from Dark Souls 2, but the description has nothing of note. Spurned fits both Karla and Zully well, so are they one and the same after all? This is one of those questions that is left extremely open-ended. There are many ways to look at it, and none of them are strictly wrong. It's also entirely possible that Karla and Zully are entirely unrelated, but similar. And Alva sought Karla due to this resemblance. Alva and Zully have always been somewhat of a mystery. They seem so important, yet so cast out when it comes to Dark Souls 2. Was there cut content there? After all, I'm sure you remember that Zully's Veil boasts a staggering 1000 curse resistance, making you all but immune to it, and many of the placeholder icons in Dark Souls 2 use Alva's set instead of, for example, the Elite Knight set. It all seems rather coincidental, no? In a game where the deep curse runs every which way. So whilst we can't rightly say what the connection is between Karla and Zully, there is a question we have a more solid answer to. What does Karla represent? Why, it would seem to be envy. Whilst emotions interplay and interconnect so much it is hard to separate them, there is an especially strong connection between envy and love, and being spurned can certainly lead to envy. I believe that is what Karla might represent. We can only guess at the motivations of Manus. His want for dusk. Does dusk resemble someone Manus once knew in a past life? And Nishandra bears an eerie resemblance to dusk. His fear at being entombed. His fear of madness. The solitude he felt. The wrath at those who awoke him, driving him mad. Being spurned. His envy of what? Who exactly? Well, we'll never know, as he was too lost to madness by the time the chosen undead found him. Driven wild by the search for his precious, broken pendant.
Cursed leech, I await you in the abyss.